take it away from here.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Hi, Ryan. Ryan, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if everybody else can.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Technology at work.
Said everyone in 2020.
Well, Anya, I mean, we're longtime friends, and thank you for taking time. It's Friday sessions, and I think you're East Coast time, so you're near the end of the day, so thank you for making time. How are you holding up? How are things?
It's good. I'm down in Texas, so a lot of us are just going to kind of shift our weekend and focus on kind of helping those that got hit by Hurricane Laura down in Louisiana. But other than that, everybody's safe and healthy and happy. What about you?
Well, that's an amazing thing to do for your weekend, so thank you for doing that for the world. I'm going to sleep. Most weekends I just pass out, and that's the best possible thing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I know you very well. I want the people, you have a number of brands and agencies all tuned in. I want them to know you as well. So actually, before we jump into what IBM, because I guess ultimately everyone knows Big Blue, and some of them know IBM Watson specifically, but IBM Watson Advertising is a different part of the company. Can you give a little background in terms of what it is and how it's being utilized by Fortune 1000 brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Watson Advertising was formerly the weather company's media sales business. And IBM acquired the weather company in 2016 because it knew the power of our predictive weather data that we've been leveraging for decades. And so what was great about that is that IBM was able to take our weather data and access to over 300 million users across our media properties and be able to infuse that data and those insights into every piece of their business. And what was great on our end was that from a digital advertising and media standpoint, we were able to take Watson artificial intelligence and start to create more data and technology driven solutions outside of our owned and operated company or properties. And so now we've evolved to a point where we still have our traditional media business, but we have this huge portfolio of data and technology solutions. And so we rebranded as Watson Advertising in 2017. And now Watson Advertising, we're really just focused on building open and trusted solutions that are driven by AI in order to further connect and provide transparency between marketers, brands, publishers, and machines.
So, I mean, you're the head of media technology sales. What was the journey to get there, and what does that position, actually mean from a day-to-day perspective?
Yeah, that's great. So I've been with the company for 7.5 years. And I joke that I've probably had like 10 roles in those 7.5 years. Because at one point I was selling cable, traditional cable, and now I sell artificial intelligence technology. So it's been a long process, but I think where I've gotten really excited, and especially when IBM acquired us, was that I knew how important artificial intelligence would be in our industry as publishers, as vendors, as agencies, as advertisers. And I really wanted to be in a place that was where we were able to access some of the best technology out there, but in an open way where companies like yourself could also leverage this amazing technology to build and innovate in our space.
Yeah, spoiler alert, or just a disclaimer, we are an IBM Watson partner. You guys have changed our company inexorably from not 2016, a little before that we first started working together, but that's when we launched a lot of your APIs into our technology, and we'll go through it a little later, but you guys have been tremendous partners. And yeah, the AI is not just something that is a robot or machine that is thinking about ethereal things. It can be used and is being used today by a number of from healthcare to media to advertising to influencer marketing. So yeah, I think you picked the right career path. So well, so I mean, now there's a large team that you had, and you have obviously a number of different divisions around you. And it's kind of one of those 2020 questions. What have you had to overcome during the pandemic? Have you been able to stay connected through these type of mechanisms through Cisco or any of those teleconferencing locations? Are you think you're closer? You think you're farther away from people? I guess what has been the response to this pandemic, as a business and as yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many companies, IBM first and foremost places the safety and health of all of our employees. So outside of just Watson Advertising, IBM has over 350,000 employees. That's across 175 countries. So that's a lot of offices, a lot of national and local government regulations, and then we have provided our own stringent guidelines that we have to adhere to as well. So it's definitely been an adjustment and one that we're constantly figuring out and adapting as we receive more information. And what we really want to eventually get our employees back into offices, but we've also been able to create a lot of successful solutions for people while they work at home, and then also while they're dealing with a lot of the social, economic, and environmental turmoil that's happening right
now. And you mentioned the work from home. So, I mean, what's the key component for success there? I mean, are you is it with not just your internal teams but external partners? I mean, what's been the most challenging part about this?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part is that, when you're physically in a space together, you see a wider picture, in my opinion. So 70% of communication is nonverbal. And so if you don't at least have your video camera on, you're going to miss a huge chunk of what that person is really trying to tell you. And so I miss being within my offices and teams to really kind of get a feel for where they are, because, I travel a lot, and going into other offices and figuring out what our clients' environment's like and what they're dealing with. And that's kind of a little bit lost digitally. But to your point, and I think you just mentioned this earlier, is we're really leaning into technology and enabling technology to help us right now in this moment connect, and then also like our plans for going back into the office. So always having our cameras on, whether we don't always like it or not, I think it's been very beneficial because you're able to still make that kind of connection that you might be missing. And then our team does some fun things. I'd love to hear if you guys do some too. But we do things like create Spotify playlists, like each person a week is assigned, and we create these playlists. And it's fun because you figure out if you have common likes or dislikes, or you might explore new content, which you normally find when you're in an office just kind of chatting about what TV shows you're watching or consuming. We've created Peloton clubs within Watson Advertising because we all know that's a cult. And we've done like wine tasting with our clients. So trying to do things to still kind of keep that connection because we can't physically be with one another. I don't know. Are you guys doing anything like that as a team?
Well, I'm going to steal a few of those. Those are actually really good ideas. The thing that we're doing, we did it with our sales team last couple of weeks back. That's really good. It was a wine tasting, but we actually got individualized boxes of like wine and cheese and like special kind of like accoutrement, very French with me, with the wine, and sent out to every single person. So and we had a sommelier there talking about what we were tasting. So, but they're all the wines were like anonymized, like 1 through 5, so you can kind of like, you can kind of guess what they were. So that was a really fun, interactive way. And for a brief moment, for a fleeting moment, we forgot that we weren't all separated by, thousands and thousands of miles or in different places. So yeah, finding ways to maybe all the senses at the same time is probably one of the better ways to find ways to connect. But yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's difficult, but I think everybody's just trying to figure it out,
Yeah, I mean it's the new dystopian future, but we'll manage. Actually, out of curiosity, are you guys actually? Is there any sort of portion of the business back in the office, or does everybody still work remote?
We within Watson Advertising, no. What IBM in general, yes, there are some people that were deemed essential workers. But I think, again, what we do is we follow the local and national guidelines as well as our own for how to roll employees back. And one of the things that I think this is providing a unique opportunity of is, like, frankly, IBM is a rather old company. And so a lot of our offices are a little dated in terms of the way that millennials and Gen Zs work together. And so what I'm really excited about is IBM is leaning in and figuring out, okay, when we do go back into these offices, how do we rethink the workplace? Because we find 75% of people want to go back into the workplace in some capacity, but maybe not in the same stringent way that like we used to, like earlier on in our careers, right? And so things like creating innovation hubs where you can take your clients and have more meaningful like engagements, those types of things are being explored.
All right. Again, we're all adapting, and I think the future of work, I think ultimately will probably be for the better. I think people will find a way to live that virtual in office life, and as long as we can get the jobs back on the books, I think people will actually companies will actually benefit from not having as much real estate necessarily having to pay overhead. So I know we're at a smaller, about a sub 100-person company. Our real estate costs, being off the books will be a good thing in the coming years when we actually finish our leases. So.
Yeah, and I think you're right that a lot of businesses, there's kind of like twofold happening, right? Because businesses are rethinking their workspace. To your point, like, do we need this space for how many employees we have or what these employees do? But also, if we do have to have employees back, how do we do this in a way where people can practice safe social guidelines and create a sanitary workplace? So they're really thinking about those factors. And then consumers are thinking, okay, what is my company going to do, and how active are they going to be able to be in order to make sure that we're in a safe and trusted environment, that I understand as a employee what I'm walking into and what my role is in that.
Yeah, and as a leader, I'm sure you have to consider this with all your team members and how to obviously roll that out. So kudos for you. I'm sure you've been it's been a weird few months just kind of going through the process. So I'd love to switch gears and go into a deeper dive into the weather channel. So obviously got acquired by IBM as a big moment for the company. Congratulations to be part of that. What is the actual weather.com and weather channel's role in IBM Watson advertising? I mean, I think I guess I didn't know this until a few years back, and we actually were working on it for a long time, is that you guys you have to have a publisher element to you as well as your technology and other kind of third-party services. So what's the publisher portion of the business?
Yeah, so the publisher portion is the piece that we've had the longest amount of time, and that's the weather channel's digital and data assets. So that would be the mobile app, mobile web, and desktop. And it actually reaches over 30 million unique daily users. I think it's about 350 million unique monthly users. And what's really interesting about our property is that not only the scale that we have, but the reason we have that scale is that they're coming because they want trusted and reliable and accurate weather information to help them inform them and protect them. And that's a huge responsibility that we have, right, across the world, because it could inherently save lives. And so we've been leveraging artificial intelligence for as long as like years and years, decades, to be able to process huge amounts of weather data in order to provide the most accurate information. So that's like 400 terabytes of data daily and over, like, let's say 25 billion weather requests a day. And so what's great about that is that we can still create solutions leveraging this predictive weather where marketers can activate on that across products and services in an open way.
And I mean, AI and obviously is part of all of this together, and it's used to parse through large amounts of unstructured data that lives on the digital, on social, everywhere in between. How are you guys using this with? I saw before your COVID-19 triggers. You can dive a little deeper in terms of what that actually means and how you guys are, applying that to business uses.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of always been in the health space in some capacity because weather has an impact on certain things like flu and cold and allergies and things like that. So when COVID-19 came around, we started compiling data of COVID-19 infection rates from a multitude of different sources, right? So the CDC, World Health Organization, and state and local public sources. And we take that infection rate and we analyze it, and then we update cases on a daily basis and see the average of a rolling 7-day. And then what we've done is created these media triggers that allow marketers and brands to serve messaging or not serve messaging in areas that either have a spike or a decrease in COVID cases. And so you think about the different brands that are out there and the sensitivity around messaging in a certain environment. This helps provide a lot more media effectiveness and minimize media waste by either positioning your brand around increases or decreases in those cases.
Got it. Well, I mean, even before the COVID piece of it, I mean, I know that in the past we could do campaigns with, like, I want to say Bayer and a few other things in the years past. Obviously, like you mentioned, flu season, like people have certain allergy potentials. I mean, how has that weather element been used even pre-COVID, used to make better decisions for brands?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a bunch of different types of triggers that you can activate against. So some of them are basic weather conditions, like is it raining, is it cloudy, etc. But then we can take it one step or two steps further, where we can ingest either third-party sales data or a brand's actual first-party data, and then find correlations in weather conditions across an aggregated amount of time to be able to say, hey, we know that there's going to be an increase for consideration or purchase of your product when these kind of conditions align, and then allow you to activate against that. So you brought up a good point, which is, we've worked with a lot of allergy companies like GSK when they have done like allergy trackers, and again, getting in places where people are going to need their services, even before the onset of conditions.
Got it. Well, I mean, so it's one thing to have the data, the insights to do it, then you have to distribute that as well. So now you've got the ability to identify those triggers. You then are putting it into media. I think one of the things that I was most excited about when a few years back when you guys launched it is the IBM Watson advertising ad unit, on these different display and digital locations. Can you give a little background on what the actual Watson ads unit looks like, or what it actually is meant to do?
Yeah, so that's really our opportunity to help brands leverage AI to drive one-to-one conversations with their consumers. So we call it Watson Ads. It's a display unit. We leverage the power of Watson to read unstructured and structured content about a brand or a specific product. Watson trains itself through APIs like natural language understanding, tone analysis, things of that nature. And then we create a conversational ad solution where users can go in and actually freeform asking questions about a specific brand, or go through some sort of really fun activity where it analyzes your personality and then provides brand recommendations. We've done over about 50 of these, but I think what's really great is that it can be expanded across your entire digital strategy programmatically or through direct partners. And then we're also going to be able to launch, to offer that in social upcoming at the beginning of next year.
Very excited about that. Yeah, we're in the trenches now, getting it all tested out. But yeah, I think just how much people have jumped in on the digital side. It's the same mechanism. The idea that conversations, drive decisions and drive, purchases. Having that happen in the most conversational place in the world, which is social. I think we're going to have a lot of fun first-to-market moments in Q1, Q2.
Absolutely. I'm always looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so speaking of social, so we launched together. This is something where Anya and I, for a number of years, worked together before we actually had the official launch. But we've been an IBM Watson partner since 2015, 2016, and then this actual official launch happened about a month or so ago. But it's been a couple of years in the making, as always happens with Big Blue and having a company try to find ways to integrate. I know that our value point is that we are finding a way to connect with a sales team and a division and that has a number of data sources, has an entire client roster that we can integrate into. I guess from your perspective, what did you guys see value from us in terms of having that social extension?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to kind of our overall vision is to be a company that can provide trusted AI solutions in an open and transparent way to marketers. And we already had our data, to your point, integrated into these social platforms that marketers can activate on, but we knew that there was a lot more potential to get into this space. And I think it was Greg in the last session mentioned that, now with COVID, there's even more of this transition of consumers onto social platforms, to the point where almost 80% are saying, hey, social media has this direct impact on, what kind of brands I learn about, how I consider if I'm going to purchase and use them, and then even my consumption behaviors. And even more so with the pandemic, we really thought influencer media has become even more important, right? Because we're all in our homes and our outlets are these social platforms, and this becomes our community that we're trusting as consumers. And so we thought that what you guys have been doing in the influential space for the last 5 years and Watson technology could really merge together to bring some much needed trust and transparency among this space that's already big, but exponentially more important now.
Oh, well, thank you for trusting us, and we're very excited to grow the pie together. And to be honest, this is from the heart. Like in 2015, 2016, when we first launched it, you guys, obviously, everyone knows IBM, everyone knows it's trusted, and it has an ability to really help tame the wild west that was this space, using AI to take all that unstructured data, or where you're figuring out demography, contextual relevancy, psychographics through personality insights. When we were able to go to the market with that and say, not just influential saying this, but with Big Blue, with IBM saying this is actually better, a better way to look at finding the best people to speak on your behalf, that was a game changer. And I imagine that now that we're able to combine digital with social, this is going to be the same thing with your guys' clients that, oh, now I can extend this. And what I didn't think of, was a digital extension really now lives, on both platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's if you're going to be going through and spending time and strategy to try and build those types of communications and conversations, you want to be able to access them and distribute them across any platform, whether it be your own site, your own social handles, any place where you can digitally touch or physically touch the consumer. You want to try and have those types of experiences available in a ubiquitous way.
And one of the things that early on, our actual launch was officially the Super Bowl campaign with Christopher Walken for Kia. And that was, besides a watershed moment for us, and then obviously the whole industry, one of the things that was the most interesting, and as much as the AI helped structure the data to make better decisions, the thing that you mentioned before, you mentioned personality insights. I'd love to get your thoughts as it applies to your, whether it's the Watson Ad Gen or other stuff you're doing. For us, having the 47 key traits or attributes of the Big Five theory, which those that are not aware of, is essentially like a Myers-Briggs type insight of, how are you being perceived when you speak? Are you altruistic? Are you hedonistic? Are you conservative? All the things that come across based on syntax, word usage, emojis on social. That was a game changer. It allowed for us to say that it's not just because that influencer has a 25+ audience or because they mentioned DIY in the past, but are they altruistic for a Q4, charitable campaign? So how have you guys used personality insights on the digital side?
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. It's one of my favorite APIs that we have as well. And I think it's even more important now than ever because, to your point, a lot of advertisers and marketers are so used to saying, I want to go after 18 to 34 or movie lovers or people who have already bought an SUV in the past. And we're complex. Humans are very complex. And it also, when you start layering on specific demographic, psychographic, those types of traditional targeting layers, you have the potential to segment out certain audiences, right? And miss some people that otherwise could be really great candidates for your brand. And so being able to tap into the 47 personality insights, like for you guys, for example, you're able to identify truly the right influencers for these brands in ways that maybe the brands don't even understand align with their values. They kind of show, hey, outside of what you think your values are, these are some other things to think about. And these are some types of people that you might not be considering. On our digital side, what we're able to do is leverage them again in things like our conversational ad solution, where we usually use it in a pretty lighthearted way where we're recommending certain products. And so we did a really great example with Bear Paint, where you could kind of talk a little bit about the project that you were going to be doing. What about the room? Is it going to be an office, X, Y, and Z? But then it asked questions about your personality and about feelings and how you wanted the experience that you wanted that room to give. And from being able to get that kind of granular information and more psychographic information about our consumers, we were able to pinpoint more accurately the types of paint that would be perfect for them to explore. And that we could see that because we saw a 17% increase in sales from that campaign.
Well, that's extremely powerful. And I feel like if I'm a brand and I'm listening to this and I can get that kind of additional lift, and also have a new way to communicate that is beyond just maybe a purely basic static ad or kind of a regular pre-roll. Are you guys, so again, for those that are listening, you guys are a mixture of both distribution, but you're also helping with the creative too, the creative elements, the type of ad units, all of that's all rolled into one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes back to the point that we were making about being open, is that we have all of the resources available to help you at any skill level you have. So if you want IBM to leverage our in-house creative team and build out everything from soup to nuts, we can absolutely do that. But we can also provide you with the technology in a SaaS platform, and your team can build it if you have a really, really great innovations team in-house. And so we try to do that with all of our solutions, not only how you're able to build out the end execution that you're looking for, but also the distribution, whether it be giving you a tag and you run it programmatically, or we manage the entire campaign and all the bidding on our end. It's kind of like a, no size fits all. We kind of customize everything to what that marketer is looking for and their level of experience with technology and with AI.
This is actually a super this is actually super meta in terms of what the overall advertising landscape looks like. Do you think that in-housing for agencies is going to increase or decrease because of COVID? Because technically they're going to have less people to put resources towards things, but also less budget to then pay agencies. I'm actually curious. I don't know the answer, but we're seeing some people jump out of it and need to augment it with other people. Some are actually pulling it in. Have you guys seen any sort of trends?
Yeah, I think across the board, everybody's handling it a little bit differently, and it depends on what type of agency you are. If you have the support of a huge holding company, you have a lot of resources and technologies that are already available for you at the macro level, as opposed to some more independent agencies that are, just have limited resources. Across the board, though, I would say agencies and marketers are constantly being tasked to do more with less budget, less resources, and sometimes less transparency. And that's a very difficult position to be in. And that's, again, why I kind of get excited about my job, is that we really focus to trying to help to provide AI-driven solutions to alleviate a lot of that manual labor and data crunching that needs to happen. It takes up and consumes so much of your planners and of your production company and of your team's time, and enable AI to do that. That's really why it's more about augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence, right? It's about helping to scale cognitive human thinking and to alleviate a lot of the burdensome work that AI can take care of, so you can really focus on more of the strategy behind what you're doing.
Yeah, augmented intelligence, I think, is one of the most powerful concepts. And people, I think AI has always been perceived as, something that might be a replacement for humans. And in fact, it's an augmentation. And what we've always said to our clients, because Ginny Rometty and the team have given us the way for it, is that you can essentially take the heart and the knowledge base that you go from a creative perspective and what you would know from just a deep understanding of being a human of something, mixed with the mind-numbing amount of time it would take to get the other data sets to make those live in together. I know for us, again, selecting even influencers, which is something that is both highly data but highly aesthetic, but also and feeling and guts that go with all those together. How have you guys applied that on the digital side?
Yeah, so we've done it a couple different ways. I mean, we go back to kind of the weather data piece of it. It's not humanly possible to crunch 400 terabytes of data per day to predict weather and predict audience behavior around weather conditions on a hyperlocal level. It's not humanly possible. And so what we're able to do is, like you mentioned, the marketer, the agency creative is able to create this concept and understand who they're trying to reach, how they want to reach them, and then we can help them really activate in the best way possible in terms of timely cookieless data. On the technology side of things, it's anything from testing hundreds and thousands of different creative permutations without creating any decisioning trees, or it's creating, like I mentioned, a huge, robust conversational database without having to manually enter in every single question and answer pair. And think of all the different things clients or consumers could possibly ask. It's about alleviating a lot of that and then plugging and playing the solutions, including yours, that are best based on, again, who the marketer is trying to reach and how they want to reach them and what their end goal is.
Well, we are at the Q&A session of the portion of the time here, and we get into some really good, fast and furious number of great questions here. And you and I can both answer. I think some of these are kind of social related. You can both answer them if you like. Interesting. All right. Well, I know there's compliance pieces we always have to go through, but how do you approach emerging media channels, and how do they factor into your overall strategy? So whether it's social or other things, maybe other DSPs or I guess, how do you think about, because you're on the media side, what happens with your digital activations for clients? How do you approach new stuff?
Yeah, when we're looking at expanding our technologies in an open way, obviously that takes a little bit of time, especially when you have as large of a company as IBM backing you. So, and Ryan knows this through our partnership. We go through a very extensive vetting process. We want to make sure that any technology or solution that we're bringing to the marketplace and the distribution form of that, what data we're collecting, all of that is completely compliant with GDPR, with CCPA, just automatically at its core, even if it is maybe a US only solution. We want to make sure that our consumers' privacy is of the utmost importance, and that we're creating cookieless solutions that can still drive marketing results, but that respect the privacy of the consumer at the same time.
And it's kind of a tack on, because also for the platform to make sense depends on the KPIs of the client. not just the audience that actually consumes there, but can you measure back sales? Can you measure back foot traffic or TV tuning or whatever the KPI is, or just simply brand lift or awareness? Like, for example, TikTok, which is one of the questions that I see here, there is methods to be able to measure pretty much online to offline sales, online to online. Triller, which is one of the newest ones for short form video, does not, because they haven't put the pipes in. Companies like Likey, which is 80 million plus people using it, average consumer doesn't really know about them as much, or especially on the media side. So I think I know on the social side, I always think about it as, can I go to my Fortune 1000 brands and say I can solve for X, per your needs? On the digital side, are you guys doing the same thing where it's like that there must be the full integration to measure it, or you're not going to touch it?
Well, I think one of the benefits is that we've created a portfolio of solutions that can align to different types of KPIs. So we aren't going to recommend the same technology solution for someone trying to drive foot traffic as we are for someone to drive an online lead form. Someone who's more awareness-based versus more DR acquisition-based. Someone with an in-store strategy versus an e-commerce strategy. So yes, our solutions can tie back to those measurements. And I think at this point, you definitely want to find ways to go beyond the click and find ways to measure what your real KPI is. What does your client really want to get out of this? But again, it depends on the solution, because each one fits a completely different need.
And we can pass on this if you'd like to, but I don't know if you've been following the TikTok news regarding Microsoft and potentially Walmart. I'm just more fascinated whether or not that Walmart and then win, or it's Oracle or somebody else. I mean, I think that's an amazing moment in the industry where a retailer who really is a media agency, a media company, a Walmart Media Group, is now also potentially going to have the next generation of people in a platform that they partially or wholly own. I mean, I don't know. Have you any thoughts on Walmart being a media company and a media company that owns a potential platform?
I mean, I think you've kind of started to see this trend a while ago, right? Maybe not necessarily with Walmart, but you're looking at these different companies, and it kind of started more with the traditional cable channels, like even Disney with Hulu, right? Where it's all about audiences. It's a grab for audiences at this point. No longer are there like, 35 different cable channels to go after. Wherever you can find audiences and get first party data around those audiences that's provided from them in a compliant way is like jackpot, right? That's exactly what you want to be at. So it doesn't surprise me that these companies are starting to go after that, because not only are then they able to tap into these audiences in a unique way, which is kind of how we leverage our media platform, reaching 300 million people, only this is exponentially greater than that. But then you also have a media and content distribution platform, right? So you're able to get your content out in a very seamless way. And so I think it's a mix of that it doesn't surprise me that a Walmart would go after it. It is like a little soap opera though. So I really am very interested. I'm watching very closely on what's happening.
I'm wondering if Walmart's going to have like a dancing zone, like a TikTok area to create content at the store. I mean, they have to lean into it.
Only if it has all of the posting assets that you can buy as well, like the mirrors and the stands. You have to have it all.
Yeah, there's an influencer aisle now. Perfect. Well, here, so back to kind of media as a whole. So, this question came up previously when we were talking to Shannon over at L'Oreal. She has the media piece there. But we're in the media game every day around trying to get clients to spend money. And people have reduced their media budgets over the past few months. What have you guys seen? Is the rebirth? People spending money again now? Is it something where do you think that there is a way to make up for the lack of spend earlier on, or is it going to be like a Q3, Q4 that we've ever seen before? What's your thought of the spends from brands right now?
I think it's a mix. Really, we've seen kind of different stories. So if you're a larger brand and you had originally your money in the Olympics and these huge temple events that didn't end up happening, you have a lot of budget left to spend for the remainder of the year, right? Like the Coca-Colas of the world or the State Farms of the world. And so they're really kind of hitting Q3 and Q4 hard and rebounding. But then you also have these smaller brands, maybe 500 to 1,000 that still need to be a little bit more cautious about how they go into the marketplace. We've seen pieces of our business come right back to where they were last year, luckily, right? Some of it has to do with the weather that we've been having across the countries for our media business. Our data business is growing because it can be applied to so many different areas. I would say innovation budgets are still kind of on hold, which I understand, right? Companies are rebounding, they're trying to find ways to drive ROI. And so I think, if you're a technology company out there, it's about really pushing the value about doing more with less and to really drive home the fact that you can drive a stronger ROI than what they were traditionally doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing some people. I mean, obviously, if you're a client of ours, Cisco, who's also, obviously for the system here, them, people that are Uber, a bunch of people that actually have, things that are relevant to the current time. We've seen them spend more than ever before. Obviously, traveler and luxury goods, not so much. But I think the market as a whole, everyone has these giant peaks and valleys since March. But I mean, so far, knock on wood, all of the Q3 and Q4 kind of uptick is exciting because it also means that hopefully that the country is coming back. People hopefully can get back to work. I know we have a lot of work there to do, but being in the media, being in any business right now is really hard. But being in the media game has been a roller coaster. Every single week, it's something different we have to put into our into our thought process.
That is absolutely right. I could not agree with you more. But I do think that we're over the initial shock, and consumers and brands have figured out ways to go about what they need to do daily, and given everything going on in this pandemic. And again, technology's played a huge role in that. Like, it's saved e-commerce. It's helped with things like even grocery stores and mitigating traffic and things of that nature. And so I do share your optimism that we are kind of in an area where we're going to be rebounding and people are going to be able to find ways to get more active again in their media spend and consumers consuming their products.
So speaking of spend, I figure this is from a brand here, so this is going to be an influencer, so hopefully we can convert them to a client after this. In your opinion, what is the optimal mix of number of influencers? The rest of it is, I want to do fewer and bigger, but I don't want to neglect our Gen Z future customers. So should it be more micro, more mid-range? Obviously, I have some POV. Do you have a POV in terms of what the optimal mix looks like?
Well, you're definitely the expert, but I'm finding more and more that kind of that micro, macro influencer is a good place to go because there's more of an authentic connection than if you were to leverage a mega influencer. I believe that it was Danielle mentioned that on the last call that especially Gen Zs, but millennials as well, we have these kind of suite of different influencers that share the same values and passions and goals that we do. And so when they're speaking to us, it's almost like someone in our immediate community or our friend is talking to us versus a celebrity where it might not be as genuine. But again, you're the expert, so I'd love to hear the way you would answer it.
So I agree wholeheartedly. And then there's an extra layer that people forget about with influencers. The vast majority of the spend on influencers right now, it's an $8 billion plus industry, is marrying that with paid media. Yeah. So when you whitelist that Gen Z, micro, macro, or even Gen X micro, macro influencer, you can then match what they embody to the consumers that have bought your product or bought competitor products in the past. And inherently, that allows you to scale. So you can still, if a lot of people don't want to pick a lot of influencers because it's really onerous, a lot of work to get approvals and content. You can still do 3 or 5 influencers, but you can still hit tens of millions of people by boosting them on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok even. So it really is a media mix with the influencers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So I think we're bumping up against time here. Chris, should we let you in the conversation?
Well, you guys, there's a minute more if you want to do a quick one. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
I guess we're just a personal question. What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? Is there any sort of long vacations? Is there something happening that is happening, in the work world? Tell us more about what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I would say on the work front, we're going to be announcing some really amazing new solutions at the end of September and Adweek. So I'm really excited about that. Bob Ward's going to be making some great announcements. On a personal level, I would just say, look, I live in Texas. It's like 1,000 degrees here, literally 100 every day. So I'm looking forward to the fall where I can get out and start running and I don't have to sit in a body of water every time I'm outside. It's not like it is where you guys are.
Hasn't been much better here recently.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It's always fun talking to you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Anya. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Anya. Thanks, Ryan. That was a great chat. Obviously hits close to home for the influential